In the Work of Nations, you argued that elite school systems and universities did an excellent job in preparing a small portion of our population for high-value enterprises. Conversely, however, the majority of our schools were falling short of helping students developing the skills and knowledge they need to compete in a global economy. Have we fallen even further behind, or are we gaining ground?
Unfortunately, Tom, we're falling further behind relative to the needs of the modern economy. When in the book you referred to, The Work of Nations, written in 1991, 25 years ago, I talked about education not being adequate for the technological and global economy that we were heading toward, and leading toward widening inequality as a result. I frankly had no idea how much inequality would be generated as technology continued to evolve and as globalization continued to claim more and more of the jobs and also the impacts, economic impacts on our society. So I don't want to put a whole damper, I don't want to disillusion anybody, but we've got to invest more and better in education, continuing education, online learning, adult or lifelong learning becomes so central to the future.
All right, thank you. As you know, continuing education programs often focus on building job skills for adults, including recent trends such as micro-credentialing, where adults return to school to gain specific competency in a professional domain. Recent examples include coding boot camps, MIT's MicroMasters in Supply Chain Management, Udacity's Data Analyst Nano Degree. In your judgment, will these new trends compete against, complement, or even replace traditional degrees?
I think they'll complement traditional degrees. Now, we are going to see a fundamental change. It's already started in the nature of the university. Right now, and certainly historically, universities have catered to primarily 18 to 22-year-olds. I mean, we envisioned years ago that universities would be a continuation of K through 12 education for those who were prepared and needed that kind of university degree to finish off their education. But we are finding that more and more of what universities do and have to do concerns adult learning and continuous learning, or the non-regular student who is there part-time, who is earning while also learning. So right from the go, even though this was not terribly intentional, our universities are undergoing a huge change with regard to their central mission.
And that's, maybe a follow-up question is, are we going through an education revolution right now?
Undoubtedly we are. Again, the faculties of many of these institutions and even the administrators don't understand or maybe comprehend the dramatic change that we are going through. It's happening incrementally to the extent that people could say, well, we're doing a little bit of this on the side and a little bit of this on the side and a little bit of that on the side. But eventually, and in the not too distant future, all those things that we are supposedly doing on the side actually becomes much larger than the old core mission.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Continuing education programs have long championed access, affordability, and quality. We have seen more and more experimentation, online degrees and certificates, and MOOCs are good examples. To reach adult learners, many who have long been denied access because of cost, time, and geography. Considering such experimentation and change, which increasingly is being adapted at traditional university, what do you think higher education will look like in 10 or 15 years?
It's very difficult to predict with any specificity, but given the trends, and I'm talking about the trends of, number one, globalization, number two, technological displacement, number three, demographic trends, and we could add to that also financial squeezes that follow from all of the above. I think that we are going to find ourselves with very different systems in the future of lifelong learning. It's going to be online. I think MOOCs, we're discovering, don't really work without some sort of component that disciplines and maintains some set of relationships between student and whether they be facilitators or graduate students or someone else, it doesn't really matter, but the MOOC alone is not going to be enough. But we're going to see a lot of hybrids in the future. I would say there's a very high likelihood, based on what's beginning to happen and what's happening to the workforce already, that in 10 or 15 or certainly 20 years, our centers of higher education are going to be centers of continuing education.
And as you pointed out in Beyond Outrage, the rewards of capitalism do not reach the majority of our population. In your judgment, how can higher education help address those inequalities?
To a large extent, by giving people the tools and equipping them in ways that enable them to be more productive, generate higher value, in some cases start their own businesses, become winners and be on the winning side of the Great Divide. And that Great Divide is now based primarily on education. People who have the right education along with the right connections are winning in terms of globalization and technological displacement. Those who don't have the right education and connections are on the losing end. Well, we've got to expand the winner's circle. That is a necessity not just for the individuals who are going to be affected, but also for the society as a whole, for social cohesion, for our sense of fairness and justice, for our politics, to avoid the ugliness and polarization that widening inequality inevitably creates.
Okay. Last question, and it really goes to our field, is you're a nationally respected political economist with deep roots in higher education. As you know, the traditional university has at times had a strained, or at least an uncomfortable, relationship with continuing professional and online education. Are we the proverbial barbarians at the gate? And is that necessarily a good thing or a bad thing for higher education?
I think it's very important that those of us in the academy who believe strongly in the future of continuing lifelong learning not be perceived by faculties or traditional faculties as the barbarians at the gate. That means that those of us who believe in or are trying to facilitate lifelong learning and online learning have to be working closely with core faculties. We can't set up a separate bureaucracy, a separate set of institutions that competes with those core faculties, because that competition is going to be very unhealthy in the long run.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.